Welcome to Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning for Monday, July 1st. I'm your host, Tom Orr. The Akron game in 61 days, the game against Michigan in 152 days. About a week ago, a little more than a week ago now, we got a chance to talk to Ryan Day for the first time really since the spring game. Had a chance to ask him all sorts of different questions, and frankly, it has been a busy week or so in Ohio State football news. Had a bunch of recruiting news, had a bunch of other news, a bunch of stuff to talk about. So haven't gotten to this until now, but did want to let you hear directly from Ryan Day on a bunch of different topics of interest. Of course, it is football. There is no topic more of interest than the quarterback position. Now, rather unsurprisingly, it doesn't seem like there's a ton of news involving the Ohio State quarterback derby, the race for the starting quarterback job, since the end of spring. But Ryan Day did get asked, okay, Ryan Day, what's the latest on the race for the starting quarterback job at Ohio State?
Really no update. We've been busy here in June. June's been busy in recruiting. You guys have been following that, but also with our team. But to say coming out of the spring and where we are right now, there's a lot of movement in any position wouldn't be accurate. We'll work hard and there'll be a lot of progress made with Mick in the weight room, but we won't really know much until we get to the preseason.
June was a very busy month for camps for Ohio State. We were there for all of them, covered a lot of really interesting players, and a bunch of guys earned offers. Some of those were big name guys who Ohio State just wanted to see in person, but others were guys who maybe came in a little bit more under the radar and who, with a big day at Ohio State camp, earned what could be a potentially life-changing scholarship offer from the Buckeyes. So with all the other stuff going on in recruiting right now and NIL and the transfer portal and all the other stuff that you maybe don't always feel great about in college football, how fun is it to see those under-the-radar guys come in at camp and earn an offer like that?
I just think everybody does such a great job of covering, the guys that are going on and getting offers that, there's less opportunities at times to find that, like diamond in the rough. Again, just because of the great coverage that so many folks do a great job of. But that doesn't mean that just because they're not getting any recognition on social media outlets or anything like that doesn't mean they're not good players. And we found some guys here in camp that we've been really impressed with, and it's been great to watch them. And hopefully we can get them on our team. But I think that's still the part of this thing that's very, very important is the evaluations have got to be on point because now more than ever, with everything that's tied into guys coming here, we got to do a great job evaluating these guys. But I do think there's still a place for the guy who, maybe isn't highly recruited, in his freshman, sophomore, junior year, but then pops up and can earn a scholarship.
On one of the shows towards the end of last week, I talked to Tony Gerdeman all about the new rule about the unlimited coaches, where you could now have anyone coaching your players at any time, anyone on staff. There's no more restrictions on who could do what and when. Ryan Day was asked about that and the opportunity that provided, that potential change in the rules. Now, this answer was given before the rule passed. The rule has passed now, but here are Ryan Day's thoughts on that rule change.
Yeah, we've thought about it. We've had conversations about it. I think that, one of the things that you have to consider is, all the guys who, want to come up in this profession and the opportunity that they can have in this profession. We want to make sure that we're not limiting those folks, but at the same time, we're in the process of recruiting, people to our team as opposed to drafting. So it is different than the NFL, and there's a lot of things to consider, especially with some of the IAWP rules that come with recruiting a prospect.
Roster management is a little more complicated than it used to be in college football. It used to be, okay, you got your guys, you got your 85, you know who you got, you can pretty much plan on all of these guys being here next year. Now, not so much. A little more unpredictable. The Buckeyes actually under the scholarship count of 85 right now. So when you're managing your roster and you're doing your recruiting, how different is it? Are you just trying to bring in as many guys as you can at this point, just knowing that it's sort of inevitable that some of them are going to end up in the portal in a year or less?
Well, I think the first thing is you have to bring in the people that fit Ohio State. That's the thing. And now more than ever, Woody Hayes said it a long time ago, you win with people. Like, that's more prevalent now, maybe even than back then. And I say that because there's so much that goes with today's day and age. There's the portal, like you're saying, there's NIL, there's a lot. And so you want to have great people in your program, great coaches, great staff members, great supporting, people around the program supporting the people, but also, the players, the family members. It's all got to fit. And I think it's important that we make sure we're doing that at a high level. And, just say, well, let's go bring in the best players in the country. Like, it doesn't work that way. You have to build a culture and a winning culture. And that's what we're focused on now.
One of the big storylines over the course of this spring and heading into the season is the right side of that offensive line. There's Buckeyes feeling pretty good about Josh Simmons at left tackle and Donovan Jackson at left guard, maybe even Seth McLaughlin at center. But the right guard position, the right tackle position, those are still kind of lingering questions heading out of the spring. So what has Ryan Day seen there on the right side of the offensive line?
Yeah, we see Josh making a lot of progress. He's had a really good June, another good offseason, and we felt like the spring he did a nice job there. So we feel like there's just been a lot of progress made. I think coming off of last year, he built some confidence, and that he knows he can do it. He knows the areas he's got to improve in order for him to help us win the games we need to win. So we feel confident with him playing guard and tackle. We got to figure out what that right side looks like. I would say we're probably leaning towards playing him at tackle and trying to figure out who that right guard is at this time. But we do have some flexibility there. And he's been a leader for us. He's on the leadership committee, and just looking at his numbers and how he's changed his body, we're expecting a big fall from him.
It doesn't feel like Ryan Day has been the head coach at Ohio State for that long. He took over after the 2018 season from Urban Meyer. But then when you think about all the things that are different in the sport, things that have changed, it is amazing. It feels like he was coaching a completely different sport when he first took that job. So when you're dealing with just constant change like that, how are you able to just roll with that? How do you deal with knowing that it's just going to be a different sport almost every year?
Well, it even started, I feel like in 19, that was like the first year we were making a transition, and then, COVID hit, and then, every year it just seems like there's something else. And I've just come to the conclusion that every year it's going to be different, and we have to adapt. But there's certain things that we're not going to change. There's certain values we're not going to change. It's just, principles that have, stood the test of time. And I shared this with a group before when I started doing some research as we were doing some of our recruiting, introductions, and some of our, talks about, the traditions of Ohio State. We talked about how Ohio Stadium was built, and when you do your research on that 100 years ago, folks had the idea of building a stadium over 60,000 people, and that's because of what Chick Harley was doing, and they had wooden bleachers over here, and all these people started coming in, and the idea of bringing in a stadium that had over 60,000 people at the time was like, this is crazy. What is college football turning into? And they instead of going to the state or going to the school, they went to the community to raise the money. They raised at the time over $1 million. Well, now you fast forward 100 years, and the conversation still might be like, what is college football doing, right? And in this situation with NIL, we had to turn to the community for help, and BuckeyeNation showed up again in a big way. So although the landscape is changing, I don't know if, 100 years later, if it's that much different. It's just in a different time, in a different, set of issues that we're working through. But I think it's exciting. I think there's a lot of positives to it. I do. I think that we're taking the next step with the revenue sharing to try to institutionalize some of it, which would be big for us.
Ohio State enters this season with fewer questions on its roster than most teams, but there are still some questions. So where does Ryan Day still see positional battles going on?
I would say on offense, we got to square away the quarterback, as you know. I feel like, the offensive line on the right side, we got to solidify that. I feel like we got to build, enough depth at receiver that we feel like we can put in 5 or 6 in the game and feel good about it. On defense, I think we're still looking to figure out, who are going to be the guys inside, the third, the fourth, the fifth defensive interior lineman that we're going to put in the game. And then same thing, just I would say depth a little bit at safety, just to kind of see who those next guys are that are going to step up. And so we know it's going to be a long year. We're going to need everybody. And so in a lot of those areas, it's depth. Special teams wise, punter is going to be, that is significant. We just brought in Nick and so there'll be a battle there. So I'd say those are probably the areas we're focused on the most.
Mentioned earlier that the offensive line was kind of a question at points during the spring, coming out of the spring. Now, the Buckeyes had an opportunity to bring in another offensive lineman or two through the transfer portal after the spring, and they didn't do it. So was that a function of Ryan Day and the staff feeling comfortable with what they have, or did they just not find that right fit?
In January, if we're going to bring somebody in, it's to fill a hole. We're not just going to bring somebody in to bring somebody in. Like at all positions, we'll always look to see what's out there. We did evaluate some of the guys that were out there, and we felt like coming out of it as we evaluated it. There was a couple guys that we checked on, but ultimately, like based on where we were and some of the young guys that are coming up, we felt like we saw some progress in the offensive line in the spring. So there wasn't as many folks in the portal, after the spring. So we looked at it, we identified it, we did our due diligence, but we're going to go with who we have now.
The depth chart at running back is really fascinating for the Buckeyes this year because Dallin Hayden left, of course, at the end of spring ball. So you got Travion Henderson, you get Quinshon Judkins, two of the best running backs in the entire sport. And then there's no one else who is a scholarship player who has stepped foot on a college football field in a real game yet. So was that another place where they looked at adding someone in the portal? And I will warn you, this answer takes a little bit of a left turn that you may have heard a little news about a week or so back.
Like you said, I think we got some experience there with those two guys. And then, we felt like coming out of the spring that James and Sam both did a nice job. And, we're going to have to play them, and they're going to have to, take on a little bit of that. We have, started having conversations with Caleb Downs. That was part of the recruiting process of possibly, doing a little bit of running back as well. It's something that he wanted to do. So we've been having him in some of the meetings and some of the individual drills as a possibility there if, needed so down the road to continue to build depth at that position. But, I think, we feel like, if you have, 4 strong running backs going into it, then, that's going to be enough to carry the season. I do think that the quarterbacks will run the ball more this season, so that should take some carries away from them. But to your point, James and Sam are going to have to step up to be guys that we can count on.
All right. I don't know if you could hear the collective gasp when he talked about Caleb Downs being a running back, but there was a little bit of a, what? Is he serious? Is he kidding? When that answer first came out. So, all right. Can Caleb Downs really be a running back at this level?
We'll see. We talked about it in the recruiting process, the first time around and more specifically the second time around. And so he's been around a little bit just to get a feel for it. We did very little in the spring. We did, I think we pitched him an option or something like that in the spring just to kind of get him going. But we'll see. We'll see where that goes. We don't have a specific plan right now, but we do want to introduce him to that. Just the same thing like Lorenzo Stiles has played receiver. He did that at Notre Dame. He's out there a little bit just kind of learning. It's healthy. You're seeing it from the other side of the ball. This time of year, you can get away with that a little bit in the preseason. Where it goes, we'll see. But you just never know. And we're trying to put some contingency plans in place because it could be a long season.
What would Ryan Day need to see to know that Caleb Downs could really hold up to playing on both sides of the ball during what could be shaping up to be a very long season for the Buckeyes?
Yeah, we'd have to see all that. He did it in high school, but we got some really good running backs in the room, so it's not something that we're planning on doing. But we are going to work on it a little bit. Caleb enjoys that part of it. We did agree that was something that we were going to look into. Where it goes, I don't really know right now, but I know that he has the capability to do it. He has the athleticism to do it, and we'll kind of see where it goes, see how he does, and maybe hand the ball to him a little bit in the preseason. Because again, it's going to be a long season. We have to make sure we have contingency plans in place. But I know it's something that he enjoys having the ball in his hand. So even during the first time around the recruiting process, we even talked about him coming in as an offensive player. Ultimately, we think his ceiling is highest on defense. But I also agree. I think that having guys go on the other side of the ball and just see it, listen to meetings, is really healthy for their development. So we're going to do that regardless.
The expectations around this year's Ohio State team are really some of the highest in memory. I was trying to think back to other years where the summers were this hyped in Columbus and came up with 1998, 2003, 2015. And 2 of those years, Ohio State was coming off of a national championship, and that helped fuel that. So with that kind of hype and that kind of expectation around the program, how is Ryan Day dealing with all that pressure?
And people have asked me that. I go back to the expectations every year are the same. I mean, it's just the truth. When opening press conference, I said you got to beat the team up north and win every game after that. That's just the expectations. And when you come up short, you got to figure out a way to get those things fixed. I think we have done that. But the expectations are the same every year. The pressure's the same every year. I just like the pressure when you got a really good team behind you. So that's what we got right now. And we know it's going to be a long season. We know what we're working towards. But I will say this about this team. Well, we've been talented. There's been times in the past we've been talented. I don't know since I've been here if we've been this talented and this experienced together with guys that have played a lot of football, 4th and 5th year guys, and that does matter.
The Buckeyes have gotten off to a great start in recruiting for the 2025 cycle, and that's especially true on the defensive side of the ball. The defensive recruiting is way ahead of where it has been in previous cycles. Could be adding another commitment or two there in the coming week. We'll keep an eye on that for you at BuckeyeHuddle.com. But is the defensive recruiting that they're doing right now and the results that they're seeing, is that a result of having an on-field product to point to now where you're not just sort of selling theory, you're selling, look, we're doing it. You want to be a part of it or not?
Yeah, we talked about it when Jim first came in, and I think Tim Walton's doing an unbelievable job as well on the back end. And Matt stepped right in, and James and Larry, I think they're all doing a great job. But like you said, it's one thing to talk about it. That's theory. Testimony is this. Look at this is what we're doing, and then I think you're seeing a lot of guys just excited about playing in this defense, and they see the capabilities and the flexibility too. Right now, the way we play. The way we play right now is based on we have 4 really talented defensive linemen that are really good and we got a lot of depth at those positions. But there's also flexibility with some of the things Jim's done in the past that we're definitely looking at. And some of the recruits that we're looking at who bring some versatility, pass rusher, we have that jack position and those type of things. So that's exciting as well. And I think you're seeing a lot of the recruits, really get fired up when they get here.
Every college football team has its own identity. Is the identity of the 2024 Ohio State team going to be very different than the one from the 2023? You got to remember, you had Chip Kelly calling plays. You got a couple of great running backs. You got a more dual threat quarterback. You got a pretty good offensive line. How different is the identity on offense going to be? And hey, while we're at it, let's talk about the defense too.
We'll see as we go, but we know what we need to do to play in the big games. That's never changed. We have to be able to stop the run the football, take care of the ball, and there'll be opportunities to throw the ball. That'll happen, but we're going to have to do those things to win close games and play situational football. But I think you won't really get a feel for what the identity of the team is until we get into probably the beginning of October. And I think we all have ideas of what it could go, but now that we're playing in a playoff format, just like a lot of those NFL teams, sometimes they don't really quite understand their identity until they get about halfway through the season. I don't think it'll take that long, but we're able to play some games and kind of work through some things. And I don't think our defense is going to change much in terms of what we did last year. I mean, it's a lot of the same guys back. Could look a little different on offense.
One of the position groups where there's still some lingering questions on who's going to play and where guys are all going to fit is at linebacker. You got Cody Simon, you got Sonny Styles, you got C.J. Hicks, you got Gabe Powers. I mean, there's a bunch of talented returning players, and Simon has a little bit of a starting history, and Styles has started, but not as a linebacker. So where do things stand right there?
Yeah, good versatility. All those guys, Arvell Reese, like you said, C.J., Gabe, Sonny, Cody. I'm missing a couple, I'm sure, but was that? Yeah, Arvell. Yeah, I mean, these guys are very versatile guys. You can see the length on them, and they do a good job in terms of fitting the runs. They have enough length to cover in zone, but they'll also blitz, and that's something that we wanted to really work on this offseason is getting better at blitzing. And hopefully we can even take the next step in the preseason. But all playmakers. I think when you see us, in the length that we have there, we look a little bit different than in the past, and that's exciting. When you tie that in with our front 4 and the back end, it's important to make sure that the linebackers are they're the glue. Cody's had an unbelievable offseason. He leads the pack with that group, but you're seeing a lot of those guys come on.
And finally, this is a really good question from my buddy Tony Gerdeman, talking about the Ohio State defense and how aggressive they're going to be or how not aggressive they're going to be this year. Because you kind of got 2 separate schools of thoughts. One is you trust the veterans and you just assume that you've got better players out there and you can just keep it simple and just trust your guys to make better plays. Or conversely, you can say, hey, we have veterans. We can trust them. We can be more aggressive because they're not going to, there is always someone who's going to be in the right spot. You can trust them to be a little more aggressive and be a little more risk taking because we know we've got a good defense long term that's going to play out over the course of the game. So which way is Ryan Day approaching it?
Well, I think that's kind of the balance that we're trying to, figure out as we continue to work into the season of, what are those things that we need to enhance, and then what are the things that we need to have for curveballs and mix-ups. I think that's the art of it, and that's all the stuff that we're working through now. But, to your point, you've seen us do both. And so what is that right mixture? And then putting the guys in the right position to do their job. I think that's, you can just drop a blitz, but, is that guy a really good blitzer? And then what stress are you putting on the back end? All those things come into play. So there's a lot of blitzes out there, but what are going to be the right ones for us at the right time? And then how much we do it is going to be based on the opponent, but also the success that it's having throughout the year.
Well, I hope you guys enjoyed that. We have not gotten to talk to Ryan Day for quite a while. That was nice to get a chance to check in with him. We will, of course, be getting a chance to talk to Day in just a few more weeks at Big Ten Media Days. That's coming up just over 3 weeks away, 3 weeks and 1 day away from Big Ten Media Days. I can't wait. That is always one of the most exciting events of the year. Get a chance to talk to every Big Ten player and every Big Ten coach and a selection of players from each team and guys from the Big Ten officiating office and TV network folks and the Commissioner Tony Petitti. Lots of really, really good interviews. A chance to ask a lot of really interesting questions of a lot of interesting people. We will be there for all of that for all 3 days this year, a 3-day event with the new 18-team conference. I can't wait. That's going to be a lot of fun. We will be there. We'll be there. That will be the start of our official season coverage. Big Ten Media Days. Fall camp starts on August 1st. And of course, then the Buckeyes kicking it off against Akron to start the season on Labor Day weekend. It is going to be a fantastic season, and it is going to be a great year to be at BuckeyeHuddle.com. That's where Tony, Kevin, and I cover the team. Mark covers recruiting. Got our whole team of X's and O's gurus making you a smarter football fan, all at BuckeyeHuddle.com. We hope to see you there. That'll do it for today. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.